Hello everyone. Welcome to today's training. And thank you for being here with us today, this Tuesday. In today's training, Michael Nye, a sanitary engineer and project manager here at DFA, will be walking through the DWSRF construction application.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Ngai. I am one of the project managers here in the drinking water, um, the Division of Financial Assistance. And I'll be going over some of the documents here, pertaining to our construction process. So I have gone over some of the our policy and our general package last time. So if in case I'm jumping around, or if you have any question on some of the items I'm covering, please let me know so I can stop and then review what I've gone through last time. But otherwise, I want to jump into the construction part. So, and again, if you have any question, feel free to type it into the chat box or just raise your hands. We can discuss it anytime you want, or if you think of any question that you want me to give a little bit more detail, I can do that as well. So we don't have to wait until the end. So let's start. So where I kind of gone through that. And so today's presentation, I want to go over the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, the construction application. And I apologize, I'm looking all over my screen because I have a lot of documents showing. So again, I'll be jumping around. I apologize just because of how many documents that we're looking at all times for, project manager, and when you're working on it, I'm sure you guys notice too, there's all kinds of documents. Sometimes you have to copy and paste, you have to look for what's going on, you have to look for policy, so you always have all kinds of windows opened up. So again, I'm sorry, I'm looking all over the place, so apologize. But otherwise, a few items that I want to quickly go through. First of all, it's our application. We use our FAST system. It's kind of like a database or a submittal, a portal that you submit all your documents in. We would like you to use it instead of just emailing us or emailing any direct person. Is just because if we send all the documents in one spot, we can always go there, look for it, and the system also will directly email us once you send documents in. So we would like you to use it just so anybody that's involved would get a notification as well. And the second one would be the forms and instruction. I'll show that later on the screen. It's our website is a direct link to our website where it shows our forms, our documentations. So quickly, you can go there, download the application, which is exactly what down here will be. We mainly have 4 packages. So the general, technical, environmental, and financial. These 4 packages, it's what we needed for a full application. So I was told by the TA staff that we will be hosting a environmental training similar to this one, and another financial package training at a later time. One is on May, one is in June. So please talk to the TA staff to get the exact date for those kind of training. So today I would like to just go over the technical package with you. So technical package. I kind of mentioned planning and construction. Previously we basically have two application for these two projects. So construction, let's go over quickly go over the planning first. So planning, we generally fund for anything that is needed to complete the construction application. Okay, let me say that again. So we can pay for plans and specification, we can pay for design, we can pay for financial documentation and stuff like that that is needed for you to complete the construction application. So we can fund those specific documents in our planning. Okay, so once we get to the construction application, generally we would have mostly done with design, with planning. It's basically ready to go. We would like to see those kind of project in the construction or using the construction application. Otherwise, we would prefer the system to use planning, just in case, so we don't hold up the funding and or the real stuff, which is building the project. So we would kind of like to separate it out. So once we get all these documents, it's done, we can go. We want that for construction. Planning, we can wait for it, we can discuss it a little bit more, just to get to the construction phase. Just sometimes because there's so many documents, there's so many design elements that may delay the project, may delay the design, and we just don't want to have or get into too much of it while where the main goal is to build the project. So that would be the first the biggest difference between the construction and the planning application. So back to construction. So like I mentioned, by the time that we get to construction application, a few things that we would really like to get done, first of all, is the TMF, the technical, managerial, and the financial. It's a check. It's kind of like a check that we want to see if the system has these problems. So we have, I will show later that we have two major documents that we would need for the TMF portion. And then we have a website with all the instructions or what we're looking for in general. So the next one would be the plans and specification. Very important, of course. A few things depends on it. The design, of course, it will the cost comes from the design. So we would like to have the design. That's why I mentioned down in here that we would like to have some kind of 90% of the plans and specs completed, but not from what we have been hearing lately that the 90% it's a very big leeway now. We used to ask for 90% is because we really want the project to be ready to go. Once we have it, we want to just, without any discussion, we can just build it, pay for it and build it. But now, because of many other issues that we've been seeing nowadays, so we are starting to move back a little bit, but it's better that we still have a good plan that we can come up with a better cost, just so we can do our financial review on it, or we would like to have a better design that our environmental unit can understand the project a little bit better and see what's involved for their review as well. So again, we would still recommend as much information as possible, but not necessarily 90%. It's really hard to exactly count from 1 to 90% anyways. So as much as we have for our review, it's very good. But again, talk to when you're working on it, talk to the project manager or the project, just the DFA, any project manager like myself, just to see, if we can start the review and or, have our division of drinking water, just to give their recommendation as well to see how we can move forward with the plans and specs. Okay, we can go a little bit more detail into that in a later once I show what we are actually looking for, so you can have a sense of what basically we would ask for. And the next two are some of the newer items that I mentioned last time. And we are starting to look for questions and or we have questions about these. And you can read up. I won't go into detail on what they are exactly entails and stuff. Those are in the instruction and or we can go over some of the examples later. So that is basically the technical package. So let me show a quick screen on how we get to it and everything. I think that's probably the better way. So first of all, let me go back to here. Let me show you. Just quickly click on this and again, I apologize. I have to click around just to find checklist. This is technical package. There we go. So this is a package. It's an example from one of our system. I would like to go over this so because I work on it, so it's easier for me to talk about it. And so first of all, this is an older application too. We just recently have a new application. It's very similar, but we have a few more questions to ask now, exactly what I was talking about on the FB 552 and the climate change adaptation items. So few items, very important, and what it says up here. Engineering report, TMF, like I mentioned, professional services. So we have a lot of questions about the professional services as an attachment. We usually ask for if the system didn't have that service executed before the agreement, it's okay, but we would like some kind of draft. Say, if the project would have executed, what those entail. And we would like to see a draft, and we would need that for our legal to take a look just to make sure everything is good. So we would like to have at least a draft of it. The next one would be the plans and spec. We talked about it. And then the metering form. Some of these forms, we don't ask for it anymore. On the newer application is because we move those into general. So if in case you worked on some of our older application and looked at the newer one, like where are the other items goes? That's just so you know that some of them move to general application. So so down here, it's very simple. We only ask for yes and no questions. So it's kind of like a reminder. All these questions are a reminder of, have you looked into this? Or would there be any problem with these questions? So when you answer these questions, always ask yourself, ooh, would those be a problem? Or, hey, have we think about any of these would be or would not be a problem? So just kind of like a mental note on what we would be looking for. And down here would be a, kind of like a checklist on what we're asking for when we look at the application. So let us know what you included with the attachment. Very simple. So this is basically just our application. We use it as a guideline as to what I mentioned earlier, that what we would be looking at or what we would be more interested in knowing. Very simple, not much to it. But now, the other part that we would actually really looking into, the next one of the bigger item, TMF. You heard me talk about it earlier. So what is TMF? Let me
Michael,
show real quick.
we do have a question in the chat regarding TMF.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, Carlos in the chat asks, if system has a TMF packet from previous project, how long is it good for until they need to do a new one?
So usually, let me show this screen real quick. Again, I apologize, jumping around. So back to my original presentation, I had this list from last time too. This is a list of the TMF assessment. You can see on the first column there are the TMF elements that we look for. The second column is the financing. So these two columns, the first two are the ones that we would look at. You see the mandatory items then over there, all the consolidation feasibility, ownership, water rights, and the budget capital improvement plan. Those, the mandatory items, we would like those to be updated as much as possible. We don't have an exact timeline that we would like to see it updated, but not too old. 2 years, 1 year, 2 year, we would look at it again if we don't see anything, or you can let us know that if any of these mandatory items needs to be relooked at. So we would talk to you about it as well if we see anything off problem per se. So those are at least the important ones. Okay, so for the necessary ones, usually these are the items that might change or most likely will change after the project is complete. So that is why we put necessary there. And if we would need those to be updated, we would add those conditions, add a condition that we would like to revisit these items in the funding agreement. We would add the condition in the funding agreement that we would revisit these TMF elements after the project is completed. So that is a possibility too. But otherwise, the mandatory are the ones that we really need to be updated at all times. So let's go back a little bit. Is there any other questions while I'm on this topic? Okay, let me show you real quick on what the TMF document looks like. So we have, let me show you the Anderson one since I was talking about that project earlier. So on the Anderson project, this is one of the TMS assessment form that we use. But this form is for, on here, it does say, only for large water systems serving more than 10,000 people. So we use this form for larger water system or large water system because we know that they most likely would have all these documentation one way or another. So we just want them to let us know where we would find them and where they are. If possible, send us a link to it and or let us know where we can find them. I know nowadays a lot of these documents would be online now. Before it would be in the city hall, it would be in the office, but so nowadays send us a link or even send us the whole document would be fine, since we're mostly digital now. So this is for systems that are larger or for large water system. Very simple. So for smaller system that we understand that sometimes that may not have all these, so we have a different form. It's from my other system. So we have this form. It's TMS assessment form. What it does is it goes through asking every little detail. Let's go down here really quickly. Let's look at this. So say TMF elements here, consolidation feasibility. One of the TMF elements I showed earlier is mandatory. So it asks you or ask us to list out all the what they are, and provide information. So you can see that each section would ask specific question, and very simple, just fill out the document as needed. Again, mandatory items needs to be really taken care of, and or any necessary items, if there's still problem, we can discuss and add in to the funding agreement. So is there any question on this that you would like me to go for some more? So while I'm scrolling down, you can see all the questions that would have asked. A lot of these, like water rights, again, we might ask for these questions over in general package. So if you already have it or you already have to look for it, you can fill this out as well. All these are water rights, organization. So emergency response plan, something like this. A lot of my smaller system would not have emergency response plan. So they may not have it. So let us know. But if we would have, if the project, say, consists of a treatment plant, then now we would like to have some kind of emergency response plan afterwards, just because there's just so many structure involved. So we might want this to add back in once the project is done. So something like this. Policy, same thing. But say something down here, the budget projection, capital improvement plan. So these are items that we would ask for in our financial package as well. So again, some of the items kind of repeated. Just make sure that all the information you've given us are they match. So because again, a few units will look for all these data, and if they see that there are information that are not the same, someone will flag this, and it will just make, just delay the review process. So make sure all the information match. I've seen a lot that does not match. As simple as, say, a population. surface connection. Try to make sure all those numbers match throughout all the documents, not like 3-4 different numbers. And then maybe also check with there's a few things that we can check for on those too, the MHI data, or check with our local primacy agency or our drinking water division of drinking water, our local offices. They should have all these data too. So make sure that we all have similar data or similar information, just so we can do our review better that way. Okay, so
Michael,
that's TMF.
There's a question in the chat, sorry, from Susan Willis from GHD. She asks, how would you like to receive the responses to the more involved section / elements? Would a separate document with each element be appropriate, or all under one document?
So say for smaller system that needed to use this document, as long as you fill this out, it's okay, unless we needed more. So for the extra one, it doesn't matter, quite honestly, it doesn't matter. The only problem that I've seen before was that with water rights, with capital improvement plan, those could be really big documents, or some of the really old system that you have documents go for hundreds of years, 100 years. It's a lot of documents. So I get it. It's up to you how you organize it. I've seen that everything comes in one and I have to just pick it out. Or sometimes, as I mentioned too, some of the info comes in like water rights. They need it for general. They need it for this. Capital budget. We need it for financial. We need it for this. So maybe just let us know if it's a lot of repeat. Just organize them in a way that it's easy to follow. That's my only recommendation. Otherwise, it's all over the place. It's just so many different type of documents, and it could be small, it could be big. It all depends. It all depends on the project. It depends on the system. But just make sure it's clear, I'd say. Because even if we PM see these documents every day, sometimes it's still very, very hard to separate out. Again, I keep using water rights because I really have trouble reading water rights documents. It's so long, so boring. I'm sorry. And sometimes they included all these info or pages that is not even what we ask for. So I need to pick those out. Don't need it for that. And at the end, one more thing. So at the end, after all this is done, we're supposed to package all of this into one document. And so again, it's back to, as you guys all know too, the more messier the document, the harder for us to read. As again, I'm looking at all these documents, even hard to pick out what is what. So it's back to the easier for us to pick it out and look at, the faster our review would be. The easier that we can grab info out, the easier that, again, our review would be. So yeah. Any question? Which actually is a good question there, because I can go over a few more things about the example, why I mentioned that. So remember the checklist I was talking about earlier? So here is my checklist. the one that I supposed to do after I get your information in. So how do I do my job quicker and better? So first of all, description. This is after I receive all your documentation, I have to kind of consolidate into one little document that I have, and then kind of pick it out things that I'm gonna come from here. And other unit would start copy and pasting my stuff and put it into the agreement. So here is where I'm going to say, or help us. This is where the problem is starting to be like, please help us for this. Say the description. I know sometimes there's a lot of info everywhere, but at least we would like the location. Where are they? What's the problem? What they have? All these we already listed in our instruction to, so go through it. But otherwise, these are the info we would need. If it's a consolidation project, please list out every single system that is within the project, so we know who our contact would be and who the applicants would be. So in this case, for my project here is a consolidation project. So I have listed, the APV, it's an apartment, and then consolidating with the city of Anderson. Basically, I explain what they are, what it is, straightforward. So all these information down here, again, we would grab it from your application, from all the items that you send in. Again, so that's why you keep hearing me say, the easier or the faster we can grab these info out, the faster we can review the project in that sense. So, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. Population, surface connection, these numbers are very important now because we have a per surface connection for our eligible cost. We don't have a set amount anymore. The amount, it's the eligible amount would be depends on the surface connection. So all these numbers we would like to be as clear as possible and again, match as possible. If there are newer MHI data, please check. Sometimes the MHI data, they might not be correct because they might count a different part of the city, but then the city has different surface map. So sometimes please review and let us know if there's a discrepancy, or we would ask you too if there's any type of discrepancy. So please look into those. Next section would be the rank problem. Backtrack a little bit. Our funding program it's basically health-based categorize our project. We base on health-based issues. The higher, the more important, the more critical health would be higher ranked. Any other project down to like this category F would be just deficiency and or any project, CIP projects and such. So that information you can look at, find out in our policy. It's from category A to category F. I'm not gonna go over the categories now, just know that there are a few different levels. So for this project, category F, I would need to list out which category it is and what that would be, what the issues would be. So for this, it's only because of the apartment was really old, was built long time ago. So they need help to fix their system. but because of their system is all that issue, I'm sure you all know of. So now they would like to connect to the city as a master meter consolidation in this case. So here I would explain what the problem is. So again, here's where you guys can help us. So try to be concise when you try to come up with your engineering report, or when you come up with a report. Try to be concise, try to let us know what exactly the problem is. Sometimes, and also these problems, it's better that it's justifiable by, say, inspection report, or sometimes as simple as show us some pictures would be good. But don't be like, our pipes are old. We built a long time ago. It's old. We need money. Yeah, I mean, we all know that, but just show us a little bit more. Maybe are there any bills that you got from past, or you have to contact LPA, or do you have to shut down the whole system? Any notices? Send us any of those. Try to paint the picture better, because we need to put all that down too. So let us know as much info as possible for the problems and such. Okay, so if we go down some more, again, all these questions down here we would ask, these are all kind of like double checking. We do ask for these questions kind of in our policy and or in our instruction. So my work is basically making sure that these items are mentioned in your technical report and or addressed in the project itself. So we would like to make sure those are checked, hence those questions. Now the next section, project alternative analysis. This, we need at least 3 like that. One of them has to be, well, I shouldn't say has to be, but we're really asking for consolidation analysis, especially analysis on the system. If they consolidate, how would that affect the system, say, in 20 years of time? Because our funding agreement is actually for 35 years. I forgot exactly. So it's the length of the agreement. We have to make sure the system is good for that amount of time, or the agreement is good for that amount of time for after the project is built. So that has to make sure, so we have to make sure, you know, all this cost is considered around that period too, when we do our analysis. Not just say, oh yeah, we use 300 grand to build this. After they connect to the system, that's it. no more maintenance is needed. Not really, you know. So we would like those info as much as possible so we can do the analysis better. Because we saw a lot of projects that say they have long pipeline. For example, far away, maybe 3 miles pipeline, but even so, that 3 miles pipeline may be way more expensive than what we need to, say, fix their well. But maybe in 20 years, that interconnection may be better than just fixing their well. So those are the questions that we're going to ask now, just because we're pushing for consolidation. We have a whole unit that is dealing with consolidating system, trying to get smaller system to consolidate with larger systems. So we want to ask, or we would like to hear from the system or from you, that why consolidation is good or bad, one or the other. So that's why you can see it down here too. We ask it again, was consolidation considered an alternative? Hey, you better say yes. I better say yes. Otherwise, I have to come up with something. So again, very important, consolidation. Will be asked, we'll need some more info for the analysis. Compared to, say, fixing the system, do nothing, any other things that we can think of. So, okay. And then the next one would be the selected project. Okay, here's another headache in a way. Sometimes when we see a project, smaller one would be easy to figure out. For more complicated projects, there might be a lot of items, a lot of little items. So make sure you put it in a way that we can, again, kind of shrink it down beautifully, because we need to put that bullet point that you see on the screen right now, all that bullet point, we need to use that and put that into the agreement. So again, we would like that to be as concise as possible, but not too much detail in a way that the agreement would be like 20 pages long. Well, it's already almost that long, but we don't want any longer than that. Nobody's going to read it. And or also, we would like to have the info not too detailed. Again, if this needs to be in the funding agreement, we don't want the project to lock down to those numbers, say 50 feet. I did say approximately 50 feet. So we would like those kind of, design elements in there, but not say exactly, not exactly this, not exactly that, or not exactly a product or a surface in that sense, because now you're locking down into a specific item and we don't like that. So always keep it kind of, I shouldn't say vague, but simplified, concise, and so we can just use it. So there's not that many like back and forth. Hey, do you mean this? Are you going to do that as well? Or maybe we will, try to be as concise so we can just boom, boom, boom. We see it on your engineering report. It will be similar items on my checklist, and then it will be similar items on the agreement. So we'll have a whole story that we can paint from a very detailed to a simplified, concise version that will happen in the funding agreement. So, and also all these items that you see me doing, putting it here, the bullet point, basically also match with the cost estimate. These will be the bigger items that I can point back if I have a cost estimate documentation, and I can show you that in a little bit. So all these, again, so you can kind of see why I mentioned that, we kind of want it to match, we kind of want it to be concise, just so somewhere down the line, someone else just want to look at the detail. Again, all these documents would be all in one package when I send it out for, or any PM send it out to have it routed for funding agreement. So any personnel down the line, if they want to look at it, it will be okay. This is very detailed, and then slowly going down to, simplified version. And also down here, you can kind of see that I have explained somewhat what, those items are for. Again, it would be better that if we have justification, inspection report, any just type of example that we can reference to, just so it doesn't look like that we're making stuff up or anybody's making stuff up, it would be better. So That would be the project wise. And so down here, a little bit more. So you can see, this is where if I work with you before, you probably would hear me ask you this too. So the notice to proceed date, we would get all these dates from your estimate from the project technical report. But again, I know there's many ways. There's Gantt chart. I have gotten just like a spreadsheet. I've gotten just numbers. I've gotten dates. I've gotten all kinds of formats. But you can see sometimes it's hard to just put down a date. So please don't give me just one date. I know some system wants to look at the date because, oh, we can see how far out we can build this project and such. But then I need to do more math on that. So again, simplify more. The more info that you can give me, the faster I can do my work. So usually we would want the date from the funding agreement execution, because that is when the reimbursement can be happening. So that's when I kind of want to start that. So any money involved would be start from that day on, in that sense. But again, it's estimate. We will use that and put it in the funding agreement, but it's the initial agreement. And also some of these dates will still be estimated. The date that we're very concerned about is the final project completion date, and also the final reimbursement date. So these two dates we very concerned about, and because those dates will be in the funding agreement, locked down in a sense. But otherwise, any other dates, construction begins when you submit your bid application, submit any other little documents here and there, those are estimate. We can work on it if you needed to change it or anything like that. But again, the two ones that we cannot change easily would be the final completion date, the project final completion date, and the final disbursement date. Okay. I don't.
There's a question in the chat. Sorry, it was what you
Yes.
were going over a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But Susan asked a question, and she asked, "Can you describe what you're looking for in terms of cost analysis for life cycle for alternatives that are not selected? I.e., we know we're going to do consolidation because it makes the most sense by far, and it would be a waste of time to do an in-depth O&M analysis for the other alternatives."
So that depends on the project itself, of course. I have another project that they did give me all the estimate, but it's very basic estimate, say a treatment plant. We don't want all the way down to like the filter, how many do you need, how much they are. So that's why that project is that much. Yeah, no, not that detailed. But let us know if you would have to design the treatment plan per se. That many people, you would need about that much cost. Just do that kind of analysis would be a good start. If it's starting to get so very close, then we might start asking questions. But in general, we know too. We're not really going to start counting pennies like, oh, why is that when you're using that? Because even if you choose it now, 2 years later, if you build it, it could be double the price too. That's what we've been seeing as well. So we get it, a lot of info in there, but just keep it as simplified as possible, but at the same time, explainable. Just because, say, some of the easier ones, say, I mean, my example, treatment plant, of course, it's big deal. But say just for distribution pipe upgrade, then we don't know. Why would, or oh no, distribution pipe is not a good example actually. How about booster pump station? So either you increase your booster pump station so you can pump 2 zones, or you connect those 2 zones to, say, another city. Then that analysis, we would kind of look at it closely, then you're comparing one little project and another project, and then we can kind of see how it relate to each other. And again, it's back to a lot of times that we understand how things work, but we just kind of need it on paper in a way. If we would have said it, that sounded like that we're just making stuff up and mold it to your project. So we would like to hear from you. So again, back to that, once we have this far, you would probably have a PM at that time. So just talk to the PM to see what else they need. Some PM may need more, some PM may need less. So it all depends on the project too at that time. But a basic one would be good to start. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So the project cost, next one, big topic. I really want to talk about this. I've gotten a few different cost estimate, and it's giving me quite a bit of headache too. It's because, let me show you. Okay, so this format that you see here that I show on the screen right now, it's what we would copy and paste into the funding agreement. And these are the title that we would keep to if possible. The allowances down here, we can add some more. Say, if you want to add like a permit, or if you cannot find any cost that can fit in these category, we can add more in. But again, we would like to keep it to this format as much as possible. That is in the funding agreement. Again, this is back to what I mentioned earlier, a little bit similar to what I mentioned about the project description. We would like to see a very detailed one, and then a shrink down one, and then a very shrink down one down to this. So this is the last one that would somewhat match with my description up there too, for the construction costs. So how did we get to this? Let me show you. So I started out with the system sent me a very detailed one, like this one, a very detailed one. This is what we want for a detailed cost breakdown for the chosen project. Now back to the question earlier about the estimate for the other alternative. So if you can match this, would be better too. So we can see there are indirect costs, other indirect costs. So what's the construction cost? But I get it, it's hard to get to this, and you're just gonna spend so much time if the project is so complicated. But again, depends on the project. So if you can get it all match, perfect. But if you can't, at least kind of big heading to match, so we can kind of see, okay, so the construction for this alternative would be this much, for indirect would be this much. And over the 20 years, if we times that O&M cost, say if there's an O&M cost in there, you times the O&M cost for, say, 20 years, it would be that much, compare that. So we have a, all these cost estimate for different analysis. That would be good. And also for each analysis that we would look for, items, because environmental, sometimes they want to look at that too. Environmental unit, they want to look at other alternative to see if there's some other alternative that would benefit environmentally that they would want to put it their review or their approval to, which something like that. So that is why we would like to have as much info as possible, even for the alternative. But anyways, so for the chosen one, this is what we want. Now, I've gotten so many different estimate because I have system that told me, hey, if we're just gonna hire one contractor, basically all that construction cost that's showed on the screen right now would be just one cost, one bill. How am I supposed to, chop it up like that? Well, no, we really need to chop it up like this. Now, we don't need to chop it all the way down to say, say, for example, say number 6, install pump and header piping complete. Yes, we don't need to call out the pump. We don't need to call out 1-inch pump. We need 20 feet of piping and then 3 90-degree breadband. No, maybe we don't want to listen all the way down to that. We might eventually, once we go out to bid, but at least for this estimate, this is good enough. But don't say, oh, no, all these costs are going to be one general contractor, and so I don't want to break it out. No, we would ask you to break it out like this. Okay, this is at least what we would like to see. So also you see that also why you see it's unit costs. What is it? Is it by length? Is it by lump sum? Is it by, whatever? How much the unit costs, how much the total would be. The reason why we like this is because after this, we are going to expand this a little bit more and then put this into another document that is needed for reimbursement purposes. So now you see why we would like the unit cost and total cost in there, because I'm just going to transfer this over to another document for reimbursement. And from there, we might need to break that into a little bit more. Depends on how the contractor bills this project. A little bit more too, like this one is a consolidation project. So there are costs that it's for the city in this case, and there are some costs that is going to be on the private property. So I asked the system to cut this apart. So I have 2 separate costs that you see up here would be the cost that is pertaining for it's for the city, and the cost down here would be the cost that is going to be installed in or on private ground, because we have other items that we would need to look at if these projects are on private property and or has to be on any other easement issue. So we like to cut them out just so we can, see them clearly, what cost goes where in that sense. And also, so down here, so up here at the end, you would have this are all the construction costs. What does it mean by construction costs? These costs will be in your bid document. So that cost number will be basically, I keep saying this, copy and paste, because that's really what I do. Copy and paste all this into the bid documents for construction. That is also what you see earlier in my other document that say construction cost. That is the cost for that. That all goes out to bid. May change once the bid comes back. Okay, so those are that costs. So down here would be the indirect costs. So these costs could come from planning, survey, anything, just anything, permit, startup service like you see up there, programming, SCADA programming. It could be from the system, it could be from the construction management, it could be, just anything, easement, any type of cost would go down here. Now, which one is which? Then I would need your help, because again, I have seen so many different title that can go to either administration or design or planning. I don't know. I cannot tell you what they should be, but I can recommend, because say if some of these costs are coming from the same contractor or same management company, then when the invoice comes in, they might all come in the same invoice. So it's probably better that if you put all those costs in the same pot or same line item, so when you do the reimbursement, our reimbursement unit can quickly see, oh, this cost goes here, this cost goes here. Again, quicker review process. So that's why these are the items that the PM would need help. So from this detail, I would usually ask the system, hey, okay, this is good, this is clear enough, it got broken down enough that I can clearly see that there are items, there are separate items clearly, and now we need to simplify that, just like what I meant earlier about the detail project description, and then now we simplify it a little bit, and then we simplify it some more. So the next one, I would simplify it and down to this. I know the cost is a little bit different because they already increased the cost. But so after that, I would like to convert to this. So you do see some of the planning and design, probably. Sometimes I would ask the system to help me say, go back to the line item. So you have numbers here and numbers on the left column. So which line item would be in planning and design? So sometimes I would ask the system, hey, tell me, like maybe 25, 26, and 27 would be that, or what? So I have a, just kind of like an idea where things goes. So once I have that, then we'll have the big number, and this is where I throw everything back to my checklist right here. So that is how it comes along. Similar to the description, I would need the same thing for the cost estimate. So the description and the cost estimate is the most important to start for any project. Remember, I talked about earlier about the plans and spec. How much do we need for the plans and spec for us to start the review, for all of us to start the review? Those are the items that we need to start for the review. Because again, once we have this cost, this estimate cost, I would take that final number, and then with the rest of the financial package, if it's complete, then I'll forward that to the financial unit to have that reviewed. And or if I have a detailed project description now, then I can send that along with the rest of the environmental package, then I can send it to environmental unit. So you see, the plans and specs depends, all the other review depends on the plans and specs too. So the more that you can give us, the better that we can do our reviews. So percentage, it'll be up to you. blah, blah, blah. So once we go down, so you can see all the other questions. So we're asking all these questions again are just double checking. Down here, we're just double checking to see if the allowance costs 20%, you know, we keep changing those, so don't worry too much. As long as nothing is too out of hand, we just want to know. Say contingency. We usually ask for about 10 to 15% of the contingency listed. We can change it. We can, especially during our, after we get the bids back, we can amend it again. So all these is just for initially. We would like to have an initial number. We would like to have all that. So once the project is bid out, and once we have a more solid number, that's when we would go back and really look into, hey, do we need to increase contingency? Maybe we need to increase to 20% because of some reason, whatever. You know, so we can adjust at that time. But so any other things, we just try to keep it to, at least for the initial estimate or initial agreement, we would like to keep it to, say, you know, 20% for that, 10% for that, and, you know, just keep it basic as possible. So other than that, the next section would be something new. Actually, we have a whole new section for that, for the new section. So let me show you our new checklist. Any other, the other checklists, the reason why I showed my example is because it's filled out, so you can kind of see what I did. But this is actually an older checklist. The information that we asked for or looked at are very similar, so, but I would like to show you our newest one. Again, all these information are similar to the one that I just showed you. All these questions we ask is almost exactly the same as what I showed you. It's just this one I didn't fill it out, so it's kind of hard to see what are we expecting in there. So I didn't show this one earlier. One thing that we do ask nowadays are the fire protection, fire flow. We are looking more and more into it. It's part of the resiliency check that I talked about earlier. So that is the added question that we will look for now. Fire protection, a lot of wildfire going on, a lot of property loss and everything. So we are looking more into it just to prepare for it. If you can provide this info, better. If we have some kind of justification, even better. Any from fire department, any info from fire department, from the city on any added or whatever reason that they need more, please let us know. Okay, so that is fire, something that we added recently. And so back to the cost table earlier, I've shown, again, we would like to keep this format as much as possible. This is almost exactly like the one that I showed earlier. So again, you can see why, because we copy and paste this to the funding agreement. Again, going down. Again, all these questions. Okay, now here is where I mentioned earlier. This is the change, the new change. So climate change section. These are the items that we ask for now. It's in the technical package that we would like you to let us know the alternatives. So again, this section is the one that I mentioned that environmental unit would look at too. So we would check those now just to make sure that the applicant answered those. So I can take that section out and then send it to environmental folks. And then down here would be a new section that I supposed to check is the resiliency project items. So we ask for, like I mentioned earlier, fire flow would be one of them. We really want to ask the question now. Adequate backup supply for generators, backup generators. Metered service for the meter provision that we would need soon. And or there's another one, the capacity. You see the capacity issue in the meet fire flow question get asked again. So yes, it's very important these days. So please let us know, and please add the fire flow requirement to any calculation needed for the max day demand or any calculations like that. So, and then down here would be the safe and affordable drinking, some of our different funding that may be used or to deal with the solar, greenhouse gas, and all these. So if the project has this, we would like to know that sometimes that we might use other funding to co-fund it, but that is internal. So we just need to know or want to know these info so we can plan better for ourselves too. Okay, so now the next section is really what we're going to put in our agreement. So you can see the highlighted part, it's what we supposed to put in. Now I keep saying copy and paste, right? This is another copy and paste, that big time copy and paste. Oh, what is it? Now down here is the scope of work. Up here would be the description, what I mentioned earlier. So remember the other checklist I showed you earlier, the one that I did would be actually up to here, up still, above this page. And so I would need to use that and then shorten it some more, or make it even more concise or simplify it into just one sentence and put it in the agreement. So we do have some example here, but it's for us. We just want to make sure that we don't want it to be too long and or have info that might trigger an amendment later on. So we want to be very careful on what we put down for the description and or down here for the scope of work. Again, the scope of work would be the project description that I shown earlier up there, kind of bullet point it, and then kind of make sure that we list out all the major component that this project would be needed. So again, so that would be copy and paste or rewrite just to put it in here. Again, something that if the system can help us to just to tailor to exactly what the project needs would be better too. Okay, so that is why that is something that as a PM we would like the system to help us with. Well, otherwise we don't want to cut out some of the major items that you really needed, but then we thought it is not, and then we kind of short sell you in a sense. So we would like you to tell us which is the most important from you that you really would like to see it to be on there. Okay, but work with the PM if once you have those info. Okay, the next section would be the schedule. Remember I mentioned earlier about the timeline that I have received with Gantt chart and all kinds of documents. So I usually have to use that info and convert back to the date that you saw earlier and then convert into this table here. Again, if you guys can help us too, would be better, because like say for the scope of work, like what kind of timeline are you looking for? But we don't want it too detailed. No, we wanted a big item, but kind of like a milestone that we can all agree to. If I put something on there, you may not like it, or if that is just in the middle of because every system have different ways of executing their bid project or how they start their notice to proceed. Like also every system is a little bit different on that. So we would like you to tell us on how you want to cut that timeline apart, just so we can all have like a check mark and just to follow up with it. So this is something that the system can help us with too. And again, I mentioned earlier, the most important date is down here, is this column, the critical date that that you see. These are the dates that we cannot easily modify without a full amendment. We don't like full amendment. So let's keep to the critical dates as much as possible. If you feel like you needed more time for any of the critical dates, please let us know ahead of time. Okay? Because once it's in the funding agreement, we don't like to change it unless needed, of course. Yeah. Otherwise, everything else would be underestimated. Like I mentioned earlier, anything that's underestimated, the PM or supervisor or manager are able to just change it. We can just use an email saying, okay, we're going to change the scope of work, item number 2 to this new date. That's fine. You can just let us know. We're just going to use an email to approve it. That's fine. Okay. So critical date, important.
Michael, there's a question in the chat.
Yes.
Troy's wondering if this form is on our website.
No, this form is not on our website. This form's supposed to be internal. But technically we're supposed to send this form to all applicants once we're finished with it. So you should able to get a copy, a filled out copy, but an empty copy, then talk to the PM or let me know, I can send one to you. But otherwise, we're not supposed to just put it out in the public. So, and or also we keep changing it too almost every year. So even if I send this copy to you right now, we might change it next year. So that is also why we kind of don't want to just leave it out in the open. Yeah. So otherwise, that's pretty much it. All down here is basically the next section down here, and then everything down here are all just double check. Did the system send in this document? Did the system send in that document? Did the applicant check this? Did the applicant check that? It's just a double checking at the end. So so basically that's pretty much our application for construction in that sense. Okay, let's go back to my let's go back here real quick and see if I have covered that. I have covered that. So any questions so far? Anything you want me to go back and talk some more? Any confusion so far?
Michael, there was also another question from Kira in the chat. It was also answered by Ibiang, but also wanted your opinion as well on it. But she's asked, to reiterate what Susan asked, when scoping the alternatives for the engineering report, is it best to review at least two alternatives in the engineering report, consolidation and one other alternative? We don't have a PM from DFA assigned when we are scoping the engineering report, so we won't be able to consult with them.
Okay. Okay, let's put it this way. As I mentioned, consolidation, big item. Please let us know, have you thought about that? Have you done any research on that? We like to hear it. at least. Do nothing, of course, is exactly the problem is. So that is very straightforward. The chosen project, obviously, that is the one that's need a lot of detail. And then maybe another one at that point. Usually those three that I mentioned earlier would be a good start, for almost every system out there. Unless we really get into some complicated issue at that point. Say they have a few contaminant. Now you have a different technologies to do that. Okay, now so that might have more. Are they using GAC, or are they just using point of use, or then maybe look into more on that. So that's why I'm trying to say is that generally those three that I mentioned would be a good start. Especially on the consolidation, we would like a little bit more info, and then maybe just add one more. I don't know, just add one more, just to quickly add one more that, hey, if they do this, of course it's not going to work either, and then just say that. But again, we understand some of the system. We have so many projects, we know what they are, but we cannot copy and paste other people's problem into yours. So just let us know your problem. We can expand it afterwards, but we just need to know something, to say something first, to start the things, just so we are not the one that added it for you. So. And so back to the cost for the alternative. Again, we don't usually ask for cost before, and or the review for us on the cost on the alternatives are not really, we don't look into that detail. So don't worry too much about it, other than the consolidation part now. Even so, the consolidation part is kind of like, is this something that we can easily say, oh yeah, that's that? Or is it just some hidden issue that we may not thought of? Say, mountain cities, pipeline, even for a 2-mile pipeline, going through mountain is almost impossible. So tell us that. Give us a quick cost on that, just so we know that, boring, go rent a boring machine and go through a mountain costs like 100 million. Well, of course we're not going to do that, so, but sometimes we don't know that. You got to tell us. Or someone will start thinking, oh, wow, why can't they just go around the mountains? Like, just go like this. No, they just can't. Okay, just tell us that. They can't. So, yeah. Any questions? Any other questions? So I have a few, let me go over this some more. So I have a few info that I included down here. I did include it last time in my presentation too. So, but if you didn't have it last time, I listed again. So there are some assistance I mentioned from DDW and LPA, Local Primacy Agency, and our Division of Drinking Water, our local offices, is that these items we would like to see, or just use these documents and come up with your engineering report. If you can reference it, even better, just so that we know that, oh, it's right there. So we don't need to go find it. Just, find something to prove that what you're saying is correct. So if you can find any of these and then reference it, even better for the justification and such. And or remember, I was talking about population, surface connection. Those can be found in, say, quarterly report, inspection report, or even the drinking water watch. It's on our website. It's on the website, on the internet. Okay. And there are other important documentation I mentioned previously. Some of these may not directly affect the technical package per se, but it almost always reference to any of these that almost all of these that when we either do our checklist and or PM needed for just some odd question somewhere. So again, these would be good documentations. Authorizing the resolutions, we would need it for representatives, would need the information from legal counsel and or such. If you mentioned some of the items may be shared with other systems, so we need all those info listed. Consolidation agreement, into service agreement, so we need that as well. If this is a consolidation project, then we would need these documents. They would be needed under general package though. Okay, so and photos, picture, say 1,000 words, of course. Why do you need to repaint the storage tank? Show us a picture. Yeah, we need it to repaint that. Quickly, easily to see. You can say all you want that, oh yeah, it's leaking, oh yeah, it's peeling. You can say all that. One picture, bam, it's leaking, of course. Oh, I'm sorry. Property information, easement. So again, these items we would like to have ahead of time, just so if in case there are items that we need to build on somewhere, we need to know it as soon as possible. Our legal counsel might need to get involved just to make sure all these documents are okay with, federal funding, local funding, or whatever. So the next one is the LAFCO. We need that for any project that is outside of the surface area. We need their approval, need their review as well. Any school projects would need the state architect approval. Again, so that's why we want to do these due diligence, just to make sure all these documents are included or will be needed eventually. Other resources, I listed a bunch of a link to our guideline, to the items that I talked about, the climate change or the SB 552 for the drought planning. So all these are just links, contacts, and that's about it. So any questions so far about anything that I covered, or anything that I did not say because I kind of mentioned it last time, but I didn't this time?
Yeah, it looks like no one has any questions, but there are a few comments in the chat, very informative. So thank you, Michael, for going all through that. Very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, if there's not any more questions, I think that concludes our training for today. And just to let you all know, a recording of this training will be uploaded, and we will also send out an email with the PDF version of this presentation and an evaluation form. And also for those interested, we do have another training in May, and that will be specifically focusing on the financial package for the CWSRF and DWSRF applications. But yeah, other than that, that concludes our training. Thank you, Michael, again for all you did today, and thank you for all of you for coming, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.